Hello everyone, today we will see a more complex example of the interaction manager with the platform manager. In the last tutorials we have seen how to set up the interaction manager and the platform manager and how to link it together. Today we will take the scene of the last tutorials with the blue door opening by the interaction of player with using a platform manager. But this time we will create an automatic door. That means when the player is on this tile, it will open the door, and when the player is on this left this tile, it will close the door automatically. Let's start by just removing the interaction manager, because we don't need it on the door. The player will not need to interact with it. But this time we need to create a cube. Here, set it with the height of 0 and a width of 3. This cube will be our trigger. So we need to add an interaction manager on it. Add an interaction, init and start. The first interaction, we will call it open and enter. The type of the trigger will be this time not hit, but event. The event is most like a trigger in Unity. So here in object, we don't need, we need to specify an object that will go on the trigger. So if we let self, it will be the trigger itself. So it will always be true, and we don't want that. All it means that every object of the scene can trigger the door opening, and we don't want that as well. So we need to set it as specific. With specific, you've got access to object filter here, and we'll use tag with player tag to specify that only the player can trigger here the door opening. Then we need to here set the location on which the trigger will be. On position means that the trigger will be on the object itself. So here, if we remove the door and the wall, it means that it's when the player enter here, here, or here, and was that will trigger something. On northwest means that if the player is here, here, or here, it will trigger something. On northeast, that means that if the player is here, it will trigger something. And equatorial with southeast and southwest. So we need the player to be on the trigger itself, so we will check on position. You can check multiple list component here, if you want, for instance, that the trigger will be triggered on here, 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 and on the object as well. You can check everything. Relative k min and relative k max is to set up maximum height or a minimum height. It emulates a 3D trigger, but here we don't need it. We need that the player will be on the same height as the trigger itself. So don't need to specify anything of these two. Then we've got on events. Here you've got a quite long list of check registering in the grid itself. Enter was empty, etc. I will not explain everything of it because there is plenty. But we will use enter. That means that we'll trigger when the player enter on the object, because we have specified on position here, and we will need to check landing as well. Landing, enter is when the player walks in it, and landing is when the player lands on it. after a jump, or if he falls from a height. We don't need required collectibles here, so we have defined our trigger. Let's check it again. Its type is event. We have specified object as specific with the tag player, so only the player can trigger the event. The location we need to check is on position, so the object itself. No kmin and kmax, so that means the player needs to be at the same height level than the object itself. And it will trigger something when it enters the object or when it lands on the object. Okay, now let's create our action. We need to add an action, and this time the type will be callback again. Let's add a callback. Take the door reference here, and we will need to call on the platform manager the method play right here with open door. So let's build our scene again, and let's check. And it works. And again, if we go out and go in, the door will move again and again and again with the same pattern. So we want to close the door when the player left the trigger. To do that, we need to add another interaction. So we will reduce this one and click on the plus button here. It will create a new interaction by copying and pasting it. So we need to name this one with close and exit. The init and start is already checked. The trigger is good for the event, the type, the object specific with the tag player, but here we don't need enter and landing, but exit, leave. This means that the trigger will be triggered when the player leaves the object. And here in action, we need the callback on door, but here we don't need open door. We need another pattern, because it's not the same move to close the door than opening it. So let's create one other pattern here. I click on the plus here. We'll name it close door, and the first move we need to do is on southeast, and the second one is on southwest, to do the opposite move of the opening. Then, once we have done our new pattern, let's just go to the trigger, and when we exit it, we don't play open door, but close door. And let's try it. And it opens, and it closes when we leave the trigger. So, but of course it doesn't work in the other side, because we open the door by moving here. And once we have set up the interaction, the platform manager to wait before doing its move, it creates a conflict if we block the door entering it and leaving it. So to fix that, we need to go in the platform manager, and instead of wait here, we need to stop. And if we do that, it's open, it closes, and it will not trigger it again. Okay, so Thank you for watching, I hope everything was clear, and see you in next tutorials.